Hello and welcome. My name's Kathy A, and yep, normally I do a makeup oriented or style or lifestyle oriented channel, but I thought, this is a side of my life that I really enjoy, and that is baking. Since I was a little girl, watching my mother in awe as she took plain old regular looking ingredients and made these wonderful treats. I learned over the years a lot of tricks and tips over cookie making, how to make good cookies versus bad cookies. And these are one of my favorite recipes is for bonbon cookies. And so that's what I'm going to be showing you how I make today. Now this is a collaboration with several other bakers. Dolores from the Baking Diva. She is going to be making her Italian almond cookies. We have Ellen from Ellen's Homemade Delights. She's going to be doing orange chocolate chip cookies. And we have Jim from Jim's Kitchen doing beer cookies. God love them. Every year I add one new recipe to my cookie recipe vault, and I think that one sounds really interesting. Karen from In the Kitchen with Karen will be making almond sprinkle cookies. Deborah from Deb's Way, she's making decorated Christmas cookies. And Amadi from Cooking with Amadi is making some kind of stuffed cookies. I'm not quite sure exactly what they are, but they sound really intriguing. So for my bonbon cookies, I really have simple ingredients here. And we're just using powdered sugar, 3/4 cup. And then we've got a half cup of butter, or one stick. In America we have one stick. Just a half cup. Now I always let my butter sit out for a couple hours to soften. I never put butter in the microwave. I think that's just, it just loses its viscosity, and it kind of can really, I think it hurts the texture of the cookie when you microwave butter, because it can always get runny, or it's never quite the same as just softening it up. So at least a couple of hours sitting out in regular daytime air should be okay. Just any old kind of powdered sugar will do. This also calls for quite a bit of vanilla, and I always use a vanilla extract. Vanilla extract is really expensive, and it's because it is a very high process to create it. It's a very labor-intensive process. Vanilla comes from the pod of the only orchid that has edible fruit, and it's the only orchid. I think it's grown in Mexico, and there's several different places around the world that are famous for their vanilla. Most famously is Madagascar vanilla, which is about 70% of the vanilla in the world. Vanilla has to be processed very particularly, and once the crop is harvested, the flowers only bloom one day, and they have bees that have to pollinate right away for that one day. And then, it takes weeks of processing to create vanilla. So once the pods are dried, you can slice them open and then have them ferment with, they have like an alcohol mixture. It has to be at least 35% alcohol. Now you don't really want to use imitation vanilla in any kind of dish where vanilla is the strongest flavor of the item. Like this is a vanilla cookie that's stuffed with either cherries or Hershey's Kisses. So I want that vanilla taste to come through. So I'll always use an extract, never an imitation, or an essence as it's sometimes known. And that comes from the pod itself of the vanilla, and it's a lower level taste. So vanilla extract, it's worth the extra money to get pure vanilla extract. And if you get the bourbon vanilla, it's it's not something you can drink like a cocktail. It's not that kind of thing because the way it's processed, it's not alcoholic, but it does have alcohol in it, okay, if you know what I mean there. So I pre-measure all of my stuff, and I'm just putting it in here. And we're going to mix these things together. We have to cream the butter with the vanilla. And I'm just going to do that right now with this little hand mixer. Hopefully I won't get it all over the place. Actually, I think I'm going to stir it up a little bit first just to kind of get it started so it doesn't spray all over the place. I've had so many times where I've coated my clothes in errant flour running around. Okay, so we want to cream these things together so they're light and fluffy. And this is a little noisy, so I think what I'll do is I'll turn down the sound and speed this up so it won't be such a laborious, horrible time for you watching this. I have my Whip It Good spatula here. I'm just going to, now we have the creamed mixture, we're going to be adding in flour and cream and a little bit of salt. And that's basically the cookie portion of this. So now I want to talk about flour, and this is something I had home economics in the 1970s, back when they used to teach us sewing and cooking and decorating. I want to tell you about this because I like to use a good quality flour, all-purpose flour, and this is the King Arthur Baking Company. This is their all-purpose flour. It's unbleached. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful flour. Now, when you buy flour like this, it usually says that it's pre-sifted. And so you just think, well, I'll just, scoop out. This takes 1.5 cups of flour, so let's just scoop out 1.5 cups of flour out of the bag here. I'm just going to even that off. We used to use a knife to do this, but I just use whatever has a flat handle. So a little bit more here makes a cup. You really want to make exact measurements when you're dealing with flour. And then 1/2 cup is the rest. And you want to just spoon it lightly into the measure cups. You never want to go like this or settle it to fill in the gaps because that makes it more condensed. Okay, I'm going to pour the excess here back into the container. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to put this cup and this 1/2 cup into this sifter. I want to show you what sifting does to the flour as far as the volume goes, because if you just took 1.5 cups exactly out of the bag and you don't sift it, I want to show you, and I'm just going to sift it out my trusty parchment paper here. I'm just going to sift this down here. Now this aerates the flour and it makes it much lighter, and so if you have a problem with cookies coming out dry or a little bit overcooked, it seems, it's probably because you're using too much flour. Now if you just use that 1.5 cups of flour that I just scooped out, I want to show you what that actually is. When you sift your flour, it's going to be a huge difference in the volume, to the point where it would really make your cookies dry. And you need a little bit more liquid to make a dough consistency. One of the things that I learned is with baking, you really shouldn't do too many shortcuts. Okay, the other option to sifting is to take a whisk and go in and fluff it around with a whisk. It's similar to sifting and it gives you that light texture. So this is the Lazy Man sifter right here. Just swish it around so you aerate the flour right in the bag. So that's your other option. But let's scoop out that same 1.5 cups and see if we have anything left over. So here's our 1.5 cups. I'm just going to stick that in this bowl here. Moving our sifter out of the way. So what do we have left here? Let me just pour this into a measure and see. This is probably about 1/8 cup or 2 tablespoons left over. So that's the difference between an exact measure straight out of the bag and a measure after you've sifted it. So this excess flour could be the difference in really good cookies or really dry cookies. So keep that in mind. And now we're going to add the flour into this mixture slowly, and we're going to add a little bit of salt. And I have about 1/8 teaspoon of salt. I will put the text above as I do this. I'm just going to whisk this into here. I usually use a bigger bowl. I'm sitting in my dining room, so I don't have all my equipment. I usually have everything pre-measured out. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly add in maybe about half of the flour. And I'm going to put in some cream. Now I like to use a light cream or a heavy cream. I don't use 50/50 or milk or 1%. That's another area I don't like to skimp on. I like to use, like this is, I think this one's a heavy cream. It gives it more body, flavor, and richness to the dough. Okay, so your dough should be somewhat like moist crumbles, and we're going to gather it into a ball. We are going to wrap this in the parchment paper. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for about ½ hour to 45 minutes. Now this needs to harden a little bit and firm. If dough is difficult to work with and it hasn't kind of congealed together, this makes the butter harden and hold the dough together much better. Now I've wrapped my dough and shaped it into a ball, and I've wrapped it, and I'm going to stick it in the refrigerator for about 30 to 45 minutes to chill, and that'll allow the butter to harden the dough together and incorporate it together a little bit better. And I'll be back with you and we'll start to shape and make our cookies. I am just chilling here looking through my King Arthur Baking Company catalog. I tell you, if you are a baker, this is like porn. Baker's porn. Oh, man. They have mixes in here. They have gadgets and doodads and baking equipment and ideas. I absolutely love this company. They don't know who I am and they don't sponsor me. This is not sponsored by them. I mean, look at that centerfold. Whew. I get so many good ideas from here, and there are recipes in here. It's just a wonderful killing time thing while I'm waiting for the cookies to chill, the cookie dough to chill. So you can see that there's all kinds of equipment and different things that you can get. Everything's high quality and works really well. Sometimes it's better to invest in really good equipment rather than just use the cheap stuff from the Dollar Tree. I think, you know, the Dollar Tree can, like a spatula or something like that you can get, but I tell you, in general, it's really worth it to invest the money in something a little more high quality. And their vanilla is apparently one of the better vanillas that you can order. And they're an online company. You can also go visit them in Vermont. This page shows you all the different chocolates and their best uses in cooking and baking. You know, which are good for hot cocoa, which are good for cakes, which are good for brownies or fudge. It's just a plethora of interesting articles and things. If you bake. If you don't bake, this is like meh, you know. Now I do prep my pan. I have a really nice thick baking pan. I like a nice thick baking sheet or cookie sheet as they call it. I like one that has handles on it so I can pull it out of the oven easily. I like a nice thick thing, and I always use parchment paper. I think parchment paper is probably one of your best tools in the baking world. Now I do coat my parchment paper with a little bit of Crisco. My mother used to use it when I was little because it made the cookies crispy. So you can either use a spatula, or you can use, sometimes I'll just put a blob in there and work it in. Okay. I just work it in here too. So when the cookies go on there, they've got a little bit of grease underneath them that helps them brown up on the bottoms a little nicer. And they also come off of the parchment paper easier too. So I just make sure that's fairly evenly coated, and that's just the Crisco. And I like the bars. I think the Crisco bars are very convenient because you only open one at a time, so I think it keeps them much fresher. I'm filming this in the morning, so I'm still in my coffee mode. This is a great mug. It's got all of the reindeer listed, and I don't know if this is a big challenge for you, but it is the season. I always try to guess all the names of the reindeer. So we have now it's saying Dancer, Blitzen, Comet, Cupid, Rudolph, Vixen, Prancer, Dancer, and Donner. Donner's, I think, the one we always forget. But isn't this cute? This little mug. All right. Definitely need this morning. It's very cold outside. I'm in Connecticut. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. I certainly would appreciate it. It really helps me grow the channel, and also to when you click on ads, or if you click on any of the links that I have, it gives me a teeny bit of a stipend so that I can purchase products for future videos. And I will take you on a tour with me, like what it's like to ride the float in a parade, shopping in an old country store like Vermont Country Store, or the Yankee Candle Company factory store. So I kind of take you along with me in my life on different adventures. That's sort of the lifestyle part of my my channel. And I also do a lot of beauty-oriented things with wigs and hair pieces and makeup, skincare, hair care. And I even have gone as far as ghost hunting, which I think I lost about 30 subscribers when I did that one I released. I was in a graveyard with one of those radio things that, you know, they call it a spirit box, where it just, you know, it stops on words. When you're talking, it stops on words like it's answering you. And I was by a grave in a graveyard, and I was having a conversation. It was just bizarre. We have a few more minutes until the cookie dough is ready to shape, and I just want to go over, I use Hershey's Kisses for the centers of some of the cookies, and I use maraschino cherries. You can find these kinds of things in with the dessert toppings in a supermarket. That's usually where they keep these. Sometimes they'll have them in with the baking goods where they have the fruit fillings and things like that. But generally I usually find these in with the ice cream toppings, the hot fudge sauce and caramel sauce and stuff. So I try to get the, you know, the biggest cherries I can find for the filling, so that there's enough substantial filling in those cookies. And I do use like a little red food coloring, and I'll put a dot of it on the top of any cookies that have cherries in them. And that helps me differentiate the flavors, because when they come off of the cookie tray, sometimes they fall in different, and you don't know which one's which. You know, it's like Russian roulette with the cookies. So I like to mark the cherry ones with a little bit of a red dot on the top with food coloring. This is a tablespoon, and a tablespoon is like the perfect measure for the amount of dough we're going to be using. Okay, we have our chilled dough here, and make sure you preheat your oven to 350 degrees. That's a medium moderate size for those of you who are not in the US trying to figure out what 350 is. It's kind of a medium on the cooker, on the oven. I'm going to start with the cherries because then I can put the dots on them, and then the rest of them I'll do with the Hershey's Kisses. And I always like to pre-unwrap the Hershey's Kisses. It's win-win because even if you don't have enough dough to do all of them, you still get those extra kisses to eat. So, you know, I love chocolate. Oh my God. Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, so now this scooper here, now I'm just going to press this and roll it a little bit so that it's like a ball, and then I'm going to flatten it out into a disc. And then I'm going to take a cherry, and this is why you have to make sure they're washed and drained so that there's no liquid, because they will leak out of the dough if you don't close up all the crevices and have them be dry when you put them in there. All right, and I'm just going to kind of roll it again in my hand so we have a perfect dough ball. I'm just going to stick that right there. We'll do the next one. It's about 2 to 3 teaspoons size, or 1 tablespoon of dough for each cookie. It makes about 20 to 24 depending on how big you make the cookies. Now I wash my hands before I work with the dough, and I think it's really important to mention this because I've made mistakes in the past. Don't wash your hands with like a lavender soap or a rose scented soap or something that's got a really strong perfume added to it, because that may transfer into the dough from your hands. So as unscented as possible for the soap. Okay, so I'm doing that, and I'm just going to fold this up over it and make sure everything is sealed tight and there's no exposed cherry. Or we'll find out later when it leaks all over the cookie tray. How do I know this? Experience. You learn a lot from your mistakes. And since I'm 63 now, I've made a lot of mistakes. Okay. All right, so I've sealed the edges, and I like to make a little ball with it. And I think making it shape into a ball is important because it gives it kind of a more round, kind of an even look to all of the balls, so they don't look too crooked. You know, you don't really want them to be crooked. Okay, I'm making another disc. So I'll just repeat this, and when we finish we'll add the food coloring, and then we'll do the Hershey's Kisses. And I usually just pinch the dough together if there seems to be a crack in it, and that's really important because the cherry juice will leak out. So I'm just going to make 6 cherry ones. So I have my red food coloring here, and I'm just going to put a little dot on the top of each cookie. So when they bake, that red dot will identify each of the cookies. You see the red dots on the top there? And now we're going to make the Hershey's Kisses cookies. Okay, it's the same thing, a disc, wrap it around the Hershey's Kiss. Now I haven't tried this with Reese's mini peanut butter cups. I may try that and see how that goes. That might be something I try new this year. Okay, so I'm just going to put these on this side. Okay, so I'm going to stick these in a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes, and that's pretty much exactly the time. If your oven is calibrated correctly, 15 minutes is exactly the time. Now, because of my parchment paper, cleanup is easy here with this prep. So you can see I have the ones that are cherry with the red dots on the top, and then we have an extra couple of Hershey's Kisses ones. I used a lot of dough, so I only made 15 instead of 20 or 24. So let me get these in the oven. I'll be right back with you. Here are our finished cookies straight from the oven. And you can see the dotted ones are the cherry ones, and then these are the chocolate ones. And because I have the parchment paper, I can just lift them off right onto the cooling rack. And that saves wear and tear on my cookie sheet, because then I'm not scraping off each cookie off the cookie sheet. So yet one more reason why you want to use parchment paper in your baking of these cookies. Really, really lightly browned, so they're not burned. It's perfect at 15 minutes. We're going to let those cool for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and we'll be back to frost and decorate them. Yay! Okay, so I have just taken about 20 of these melt wafers, and these are dark chocolate melting wafers, and they're from Aldi. And I just heated them up for about 50 seconds in the microwave. Now this chocolate should be like a runny consistency, almost like a hot fudge consistency. Sounds good, huh? You can either dip the cookies in the chocolate, or you can spread them with one of these spreaders. Either way works fine. And again, I think the chocolate really offsets the flavor of the cherries nicely. And it also identifies this cookie as a cherry one. You can either put the sprinkles on the top yourself, or you can dip it in. I like to place them on myself. I'll just show you that. Isn't that nice? And again, I marked the cherry ones with that, and they'll all be the chocolate coated ones, because I think chocolate's the best topping for those particular bonbons. You know, you may just decide you only want to do the Hershey's Kisses one, which is, you know, I do that a lot of times. I'll just do Hershey's Kisses bonbons, but if you just leave it plain, it's also very, very nice. Now about 20 wafers does coat about 6 cookies, so that gives you, you know, kind of an eyeball on how much to use. I know when they have melting wafers, it's hard to tell how many you actually need without wasting them. Okay, so that is the cherry ones done. So now we're going to make the frosting, and that is basically a cup of powdered sugar and about a teaspoon of vanilla, and then a little bit of cream. I only add part of the cream and work it in. I like to hand stir this particular frosting. If you want a thicker frosting, of course, you would add less liquid. I like to do this not with a mixer, because the mixer can get really messy. And I'm just going to add a little more cream. And again, you know, using cream instead of 1% milk or even Carnation evaporated milk gives it a richness that you can't get from the cheaper things. Okay. a really nice consistency here. I'm just going to frost a couple of them with the plain, and then we'll add food coloring to the frosting and do it that way. Now if you want to use like these, this is a great little thing. It's like 4 different sprinkles. You have green, red, you have the little dots, and then you have the Christmas tree, red, white, and green, which is really fun. So let me just put these in a little bowl. And I will dip my next one into that. So let me just go into here. And I'm just going to dip it into here. There you go. Isn't that nice? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to use some red food coloring. And I'm just going to mix that into the frosting. And with the red, you need a lot of the food coloring to get a red color. Otherwise, it just looks pink. So you really need to get a lot of that food coloring in there so it makes a red color rather than kind of a pastel pink. I'd rather have it be darker red than light pink. Okay? So let's just take this, and I'm just going to paint on some of this frosting. And that's pretty on its own, I think. Gosh. And you can put the dots on this. Or you can just put the red shimmer on the top because it's so festive on its own. Just dip it in the red. So you have red festive going on there. So there you have it. Here are the cookies. Aren't they pretty? I might just cut one in half so you can see what it looks like. And this is the cherry cut in half. And this is the chocolate cut in half. So I hope you've enjoyed my little demonstration on how to make bonbon cookies. 6 other bakers, and I really hope you go and see each one of their videos as well. I have their links, you saw their thumbnails, and I hope all of you have a very safe, warm, happy, wonderful holiday season. Take care, everybody. Toodles! Awesome, awesome.